change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change.
It's Wednesday, September 21st. Welcome to Spirit Cafe on this beautiful Wednesday day, because wherever you're coming from to us today, you could be morning, afternoon, night. So Spirit Cafe is where we have difficult, controversial conversations, because Rev B and I both believe that it's important. It's important so that we're able to listen to each other, we're able to be respectful of each other, even if we don't agree. And that is the way forward to peace. So I am Cheryl Rogers. I am the spiritual coordinator at Unity Kitchener, and my co-host is
Barbara Schreiner-Trudell, and I am the minister and founder of the Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake in Toronto.
and we are one.
We are one.
We are one. So I'm not sure if everybody knows this, because I just actually realized from something I read that today is the day of peace. And I get some quotes from Sadhguru, and I thought it was so relevant to what we're doing today, in that we're talking about having conversations that are difficult, sometimes controversial. And he says, if we cannot keep our minds peaceful, how can the world be peaceful? The world outside is a reflection of the human mind. Mm-hmm. And so let's, I think, indulge in getting to know each other's human minds and create a world of peace. But before we do that, I would like to acknowledge the lands that we are on. So take a moment and just breathe and center yourselves as we acknowledge the indigenous peoples of all the land that we are on today. We acknowledge the importance of these lands, which we each call home, from coast to coast to coast. We acknowledge the ancestral ceded and unceded territory of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people. And we acknowledge how grateful we are to be here today. Miigwech. So, Refi, did you watch the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II on Monday?
No, I did not.
Well, I did. I watched some of it, and I thought it would be a great conversation to have today.
I agree.
Because it is quite controversial, I think. Some people still would like the monarchy to continue, and they love it. And some people think it should just cease. What is that? Cease to exist? But cease and desist? What's it called?
Desist. Hi, Ravani. Glad you're here. Yeah, I have mixed emotions about it, because I look at the colonialism of the world and the things that have happened over the years. And I know that what we did in the past, some found it acceptable. But what we're discovering today is a lot of harm has been done, just like what we did here with the indigenous peoples. The harm that's been done can't be changed or altered. So for me, I have really mixed emotions about the monarchy, especially with King Charles, because I don't see him as a king. I don't see him as a leader. But now he is. And I feel a bit bad for his wife, the Queen Consort, because that was the love of his life. And he got forced to marry the way you're supposed to, rather than from the heart. And so
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for her in the sense that she's been, in some cases treated like, oh, less than Diana.
Mm.
And the truth is that was the love of his life, always
Mhm.
has been. So,
Absolutely.
I honor her as a woman going this, this journey for her, I'm sure is not going to be an easy one. Although probably none of the last number of years have been all that easy for her. But when I look at the monarchy, it feels a bit stale and outdated. And I think it's also one of those things where, when I look at what's happened around the world through history and the damage that's been done, it's hard to honor a system that has perpetrated such damage. And I hold us in Canada in that same place because of what we did with residential schools and stuff. And I know their residential schools are in the US as well. But so I have mixed feelings. I cried when she died. It was like, oh my God, the end of an era she's always been.
Hmm.
So that part for me was interesting. Um, but yeah, I have mixed emotions.
Yeah, I'll just share Linda. Welcome, Linda. Linda says, I don't care, it's up to the British. Um, but it's really been on my mind quite a bit because some people just say, do away with the monarchy, and I really don't think that it's black and white. I think it's a much deeper, more complex, issue. And one of the things that I thought about is you can't wipe out history.
No, you
And,
can't.
it's not either or, it's both and. And I also thought about the fact that I really do believe that the monarchy has evolved over the years. I think Queen Elizabeth has done a marvelous job of that.
Mhm.
She really has, in my mind, and it's my opinion, I believe listened to the people
Yeah.
and and moved forward accordingly. And so I see that as an evolution, just as we evolve as people, an evolution of a system, of a society, and I think that's important. And that also shows how our thinking and our feelings can create change, because that's what pushed the monarchy in a new direction. Um, yeah. And I just, I think it's also, I thought about restorative justice. I really am passionate about restorative justice. And I do believe that Charles is committed to reconciliation, King Charles. And there are some Indigenous people that I saw interviewed yesterday that really loved the Queen.
Yeah.
And one of them spoke about some of the treaties that were done with the crown before all the atrocities that took place here. And so we can have it's just so complex. I think it's more complex than a lot of people realize. I looked at how many jobs would be lost. Oh my goodness, if you looked at how many people were involved in this whole, and I'm going to call it show, because to me it is. And I actually quite enjoy the pomp and ceremony. I really do. It's like a ritual, right?
It is.
And I think a lot of people do. And so it's not about condoning anything that happened in the past, because that is just I don't know, abhorrible. Is that the word? I can't think. It's abominable. I don't know what the word is, but honestly, there's nothing that can ever okay any of what's happened and taken place. But I
Yeah.
also think, yeah, that they can also play a role in reconciliation and healing.
Yeah, they can. And I think, like, I was kind of hoping that maybe Charles would step back and let William take the throne. Because I think in youth, there's a deeper connection to what's happening and a different viewpoint on what reconciliation actually would look like and what
Mhm.
that take in order to accomplish that, because it's not a little simple task. This is going to be a journey of exploration and expansion that goes beyond anything we can even imagine. And I think that, so that was my opinion. I was thinking King Charles, I don't know. I mean, he's in his 70s. How he relates to, young people, or, the evolution, the very changing way the world is evolving. I'm not sure that in his 70s that he has the ability to really respond as powerfully as maybe William could. And when I look at Harry and Meghan, that's a whole other story again, where, I look at even the fact that, and I don't know for sure, but I think the Queen accepted her at the first. And being a woman who's mixed race and an actor, and, she had so many things sort of against her coming in, a little bit like Camilla. Like that outsider that has drawn the love of a member of the monarchy. So, yeah, lots of questions, lots of things to think about.
And I just want to share Mary Ellen's comment, which is so true. Queen Elizabeth II changed things before she died, which mattered. And I totally agree. The country felt peace has been restored, or a healing that was happening between the people, and they spoke out loud about that. Absolutely. And talking about, Camilla and Meghan, I mean, think about it, 50 years ago, it could never have happened, right? Not only is Camilla an outsider, she's divorced, and so is Charles, and I think Meghan is divorced as well. She was married once before. And I don't know if many people know that, but, these are the kinds of things that I think was because of the Queen that were allowed and accepted, and allowed these respect. I think she respected her loved ones' choices.
Yes.
And was willing to make those changes so that others could do that in the future. She also changed things so that Charlotte could become queen and be next in line after Prince George. No, George is the little one. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's Charlotte, George, and I don't know, maybe somebody can type in the eldest son's name. But yeah, so when it comes to Charles and Prince William being kings, I think I had also hoped, that Prince William would be the next person to step into the role. So George is Louis, thank you. So I did get it right in the first place, and then I doubted myself. Thanks. My apologies, Prince George. But where was I going? Oh, Charles and William.
Yes.
And but I have to say that I honestly admire King Charles now for the way he conducted himself through this whole process. From the passing of the Queen, throughout this whole ordeal, and my goodness, Monday was a long day for them. A long day. I think they started at, I don't know, 3 or 4. Can you imagine they had to get ready? This is in the morning for us, 3 or 4 a.m. And then it went on till late afternoon. Then they went back and came back for a private memorial. I believe the public stuff was about 8 hours. I mean, that's huge, right? I don't know. I kept thinking I would just want to go and be alone somewhere.
I think, yeah, that's one of the things when you're in the public eye like that, regardless of your position. And of course, the monarchy is huge, given all of the, I think it was, 15 sovereign states that she's still head of at her death. So it's like, it's huge. I mean, this was a worldwide monarchy. It's not just England. And because of that, it was interesting to listen to a little bit of Charles and to watch a little bit of the, passing Buckingham Palace. I saw that little bit, but it's like in watching all of that, when you're in the public eye to that degree, there's no such thing as a moment.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine how difficult that would be to always be proper, to always maintain. And the fact that she took the throne at what, 25? So
Was she 25 or 21?
25 years old. And
Okay.
yeah, and she served for 70 years and 214 days.
Yeah.
And she's 96. She was
Yeah.
96 at her passing. So when you look at that, 25 years old, I remember me at 25.
Yeah.
I was a flat out mess.
Yeah.
I couldn't be governing a country. I couldn't govern my own life. And so to imagine that, and I know she had been prepared for this and stuff,
Yes. Yes.
still the level of responsibility that comes with that particular role. And then, wanting to have a human experience. We know what happened with Charles and Diana, and then, how that was for Camilla and things. So there's a whole lot of stuff that is hard to even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We're not living it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, there's life is a fascinating thing for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I have to say that just seeing how Prince Charles managed everything and his whole demeanor and talking to the people, I agree with Emmy. He knows the protocol and has the history of the Prince as Prince of Wales to
Yeah,
handle the royal business. And he was also, he was prepared for this, right? And he was able to step right in to continue things. And I actually think that Prince William and Kate can do a lot by being the
yeah,
Prince and Princess of Wales, right?
yeah,
So it might be a better role right now because they can be more active than what the king or queen can be in some of those things. They can have more of a say, I believe, from what I've read,
yeah.
right? And yeah, so it's very, very interesting. Um, Please type in your thoughts about what you feel about the monarchy and how you feel about it, and anything that you would like to share or say.
Well, I think we did we talk about it at all with Gino last week?
I don't know that we did. I don't think so.
Right, we did on the other show. We talked with Rev Elzia, and
Yes,
he's going to be on our show next week. So,
yes.
as a Black person, his experience of the monarchy a little bit different than
Mm-hmm.
a white person's experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that we have to address. I mean, as white people, we have no understanding of the Black or Indigenous experience.
Absolutely.
We can't have. And for me, that's the piece that leaves me a little unsettled with the monarchy, is it now at a place? I mean, we're talking about reconciliation with Indigenous, but here in Canada, we have Indigenous people who don't have water,
Yeah.
right? That don't have the basic needs. Communities where their youth are committing suicide hand over fist constantly. There's so much work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel a little bit overwhelming, to me anyway, a little bit overwhelming to look at what the government is doing and what it could be doing. And so I wonder if with this change that we're going to begin to see some real movement forward. And I know that, really Canada is on its own now. We're not, under the crown so much, but it's still, there's a connection. And I really would like to see things happen. We're a very affluent country. We have the ability to support and to begin to repair the damage we've done. And I think that reparation has to begin with very basic needs: water, food, shelter.
100%. I agree 100%. The thing I do think about is, you're right, like the monarchy is just, what is the word? It's symbolic. It's a figurehead. It's not really, it doesn't have any power over us, right? And so when I think about it, I don't just think about the monarchy being responsible. I think about the governments, the people of Canada, right? The people of Canada voted for the governments, and it was their thinking that put those people in place and created what happened here. It's the Catholic Church, right?
And the Anglican Church as well, both.
And the Anglican, and so I don't know enough about the churches, but because I've been here for 20 odd years. But I know that from what I've seen in the news, the churches played a huge role, and not just in trying to educate what they would call the Indian out of them, but in the abuse and atrocities that were committed. So again, it's a much larger issue that I think is important to talk about, and to educate ourselves about.
I think that's part of it, is the education, to really get a sense of our own personal responsibility and what's happening, and then what we can do. And of course, with the government, we have the option to vote in or vote out someone. And, it's, I sometimes wonder if the way everything's set up, if it really does create great change, or if we just keep sort of bouncing back and forth between two parties. We say we have lots of parties, but we kind of bounce back and forth between two. And it would be nice to see some real change from our government, but from our country, the people of this country, to stand up, and instead of judging our Indigenous people in a very negative way, which I've heard often, is to sit back and go, we created a monster, and now we get to deal with it. And how we deal with it really matters. And I think, even when we look at, the British coming to the Americas, it wasn't, the Queen or the King who went in and, messed up all these people. It's everyone who came decided that our way is the best way. And we see that in so many different conversations in our world, my way is the right way. Yeah. And for me it is, but that doesn't mean it is for you, my beloved sister Cheryl. It's like, we have different ways of doing things. And so I look at our world right now and I go, what is it that I can do, and what is it that we can do to begin to actually accept, acknowledge, and respect all of humanity, and especially the people we don't understand, or the ones that are being hurtful right now, because hurt people are the ones who hurt people.
Absolutely.
And so we have to get kind of underneath. There's, reparation isn't going to be an easy thing. That's for darn sure.
No, it's not. I liked what C from Unity Ottawa posted. She said, I have great respect for the modern monarchy. They have had to make many apologies. Is it better to have them for people to look up to, or actors and musicians? And that's a great point, C. I mean, it horrifies me how much we pay sports people. Like, oh my goodness, like, what does that say about our values? Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation that we can have. But I do agree with that. And Emmy says the Queen was neutral and not involved in politics. Yes, it was the government and the Catholic and Anglican churches, yet it was the individual religious men and women as nuns and priests that did the abuse and torture, and not one has been taken to task for their behavior. I'm not sure the government told them to perform this genocide. And again, absolutely. And so this, all these comments that are coming out, thank you, because these are the things I think that are important, that need to be said and heard, so that we're I feel, going deeper into the conversation you know, instead of just saying, oh, they should be there or they shouldn't. And before you take over, Rev B, I know that we have a few minutes before break. I do want to say that I do believe that the monarchy, because when you see how many millions of people watched, not just were on the streets, but online and right, I believe they have a great opportunity to make great change. And so I really think, you know, that people should not discount that. Thank
I
you.
agree completely about that. And that's, you know, there's great power in that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's use it. And
Yeah.
like Rev M.E. said, you know, the Queen was neutral. However, the Queen has power. The King now has immense power. It may not be the power to tell government what to do or whatever, but they have power to influence.
Exactly.
Far more power than any actor and musician that I know of. And yet there's some musicians and actors out there who are doing brilliant work to
Yes.
change the world. And so I think it's up to the monarchy right now to stand up and use that power very, very clearly for good, for reparation, to really make lasting change in what's been going on. So,
yeah. And don't forget, Prince Charles is an environmentalist.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, they really do have an opportunity, not just the power and opportunity. And I think that Prince William and Catherine will really use their positions as well to be part of the change. And maybe if not to drive it. Right.
Yeah, I think they could definitely be the drivers of change. And I think that's what I loved about Diana. Like Princess Diana was a force of love. Like that. That's the word that would describe her and all that she did and the lives she touched, and the fact that she's still alive in the hearts and minds of everyone still to this day because of the way she treated people and like her respect for humanity was so intense. And let's hope that gets a boost here.
Absolutely.
Forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And Emmy makes a comment here, and I didn't know this, so thank you. She says, yes, they have the power not to sign the damn papers to execute the wishes of our countries. So I didn't know that they signed that. And I do believe that what they're doing is respecting the choice of government that the people have put in place. So it's you know, it's yeah, that's a difficult one.
It is. And at some point in time, they may have to have a conversation with the Governor General and say, you know what, we can't go along with this because it is in alignment with reparation. It isn't in alignment with shifting to a new paradigm. And we have to shift to a new paradigm. The subtleties of the colonialism is so ingrained. It is shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very surprising, but I don't know.
Well, it's time for a commercial break, so don't go away and come back with some thoughts and comments to continue this great conversation that we're having about the monarchy and its impact on the world.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings. New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome back. So, yeah. Where do you want to go from here, Rev B?
Well, it's so interesting because one thing morphs into another, and it's fascinating to just look at just where we want to go next. And I think for me, there is this real desire to begin to celebrate people in a new way. I was speaking with somebody yesterday as I was out walking my dog, and he was talking about how a way of presenting things is, oh, would you like to really save a lot of money, like to corporations and to people overall? Do you want to save a lot of money? Here's a way to save a lot of money. Make sure homeless people have homes.
Mm-hmm.
People who don't have jobs have income. And medical care is covered for these people. Because what happens is when people are fed and clothed and have water and things like that, it reduces, first of all, the criminal element, but more importantly, health costs, which are absolutely off the charts. And I think sometimes we forget that. And so in having these conversations where we think about how colonialism has impacted, racialized people in our countries, what we soon come to realize is that we do have the power to turn it around, but it requires a change in thinking.
Yes.
And a lot of people who are in power or who are heads of, corporations or whatever, there can be a reluctancy to give. And I think giving becomes a very important part of what we do. And for anybody who hasn't heard of it, there was a project done in Canada called the Mincombe Project. And it was in Dauphin, Manitoba. And the idea was a collaboration between the federal government and the provincial government to create a no poverty zone. And for 5 years, every single adult in Dauphin, Manitoba had a living wage, whether they worked or not. If they worked and their pay was low, the government bumped it up. Education was free, medical was free. And a couple things came out of that report when it finally came out. It has to be after 50 years before they'll release these things. When it came out, showed that the savings, and this surprised me, but it shouldn't have. I knew incarceration, policing, things like that would be down. I thought that would be the biggest saving overall. It wasn't. It was healthcare.
Absolutely.
And here's the other interesting point. Every adult worked.
Wow.
Other than moms staying home rearing young children, every adult worked.
So with all that evidence, why are we not doing it? That's the big question, right?
It's called greed.
Yeah.
It's called greed. It's fascinating to me when I look at some of these conversations, because it's, when we're looking at changing our world, it is going to cost me something, right? And I think that's a really important part of the change is that, am I willing to give up my privilege in order that my brothers and sisters, well, rather my family on the planet, can actually have an uplift in their condition? And I have been criticized for giving money to homeless people. I've been criticized for, just sort of going that extra mile sometimes. And I just take it with a grain of salt and go, well, each to his own. But I'm going to model a behavior for my children that hopefully they will then model in the world as well, because I really believe we teach each other how to treat people. And
Absolutely.
as parents, we have a responsibility. And Rev ME just put in the chat, what can people do about the growing acts of bullying going on in our world? And that is, that to me is one of the most important issues. I've written a book and I've got some more in the works, children's books. One of the things I noticed with being the age I am and the training I am and having a teenage daughter is when she was in school, she was, occasionally bugged, especially by boys, because little boys tend to do that, right? Boys will be boys. Anybody ever hear that statement? Boys will be boys. Well, boys will be boys gives them privilege. It gives them permission. It gives them permission to bully. How many girls ever heard, oh, he's pulling your hair and pinching you and hitting you? Oh, that's because he likes you. Oh, good. Let's just continue the violence into adulthood. I think we're giving messages that are flat out wrong. And if we want our world to transform, we have to begin treating our little people like the human beings that they are, created, unique, and special, that maybe require some socialization training so they don't punch each other and hurt each other. And when it comes to the bullying idea, bullying is something that happens at all levels of government. It happens in industry. And of course, it's happening in the schoolyards. And we cannot address bullying. What we need to address is the systemic challenge of the fact that hurt people hurt people. Until we start at a very young age of honoring the humanity of each individual and celebrating that and beginning to work with that, we're not going to change such a big issue. You look at the gun violence, you look at the kids who go into school and shoot other kids. It's happened in Canada, not as often as the US, but it's happened. And when you read back the story of these children who've gone in and done this, they're the ones who've been beaten, bullied, ridiculed, and have broken.
Yeah.
And so we have to start right at the underground. We got to start at the base of this puppy, educate our children, educate our parents, find ways to have respectful conversations, give up a little bit of our competitive nature. That could be tough.
Well, yeah, I honestly, I know this might be to some people idealistic or ridiculous, but I really do believe that the whole system has to change.
I agree.
The whole system has to change. And so when I see all the upheaval and all that's going on, and it's at some point I think to myself, well, maybe that's how it's got to get worse before it gets better. Like I remember when it was the 99% against the 1%, there was that rising, right, of the 1% are the rich and privileged, and the 99% are the rest of us. And when that happened, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I really thought this was going to have legs and go somewhere. And then it just petered out, right? But I do believe that there has to be great change in our school systems, just absolutely in everything, our political systems, our the way we do things, our values, all those kinds of things. And, when we talk about governments and countries, what are you doing?
Let's get to work.
I know. Well, putting it out there, having conversations, let's, but it's all about power and control. When
It
we
is.
look at governments and countries bullying other countries, right? It's about power and control. That's
Always.
all it is.
Mhm.
You know, and what's in it for them?
Greed, fear.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really does boil down to greed when you think about it. Like, we have enough food to feed every single person on the planet
yeah,
well.
yeah.
We don't have to just give them KFC or McDonald's. We can actually feed them well.
Hmm.
Um, there is enough prosperity. There is enough of everything for every single man, woman, and child on this planet to be housed, clothed, and cared for in a really comfortable way. What's happened is there's an inequity in how things are distributed, who deserves and who doesn't. And when we look at, Rev ME mentioned earlier that Flint, Michigan, they don't have drinking water and stuff there. It's like, I'm sorry, we've got these prosperous countries, and we dare to point fingers at third world countries.
Yeah,
Like, oh, those poor people. No, no, no. Wait a minute. Let's just look right here at home what's going on.
yeah.
We're not doing the best that we could with the resources that we have and the ability that we have. And it really does come down to, fear, I think, is the underlying thing, believing that if I give something to someone, I will have less.
Hmm.
And of course, that's
Absolutely.
not what we teach in our teaching. What we teach is that as I give, as I use what I'm given, and as I share, I receive more. There's a bounty that is reciprocal in nature. And so as I give, so shall I receive. The law of circulation is very exact. And I've practiced it for so many years, and I'm seeing it continuously around me, that when I act from fear, there's a restriction in the universal flow of energy in my life and in my world. But in the moment when I free that up and I go, well, wait a minute, I'm not, I've got enough. I'm okay. Then
Hmm.
there's an energy that flows and moves that absolutely responds to that. So I
Hmm.
think, we're being called to live in a new way, to look at ourselves and our lives in a new way, so that
Hmm.
we can honor all life, all of humanity, and create a world that actually does work in the highest and best good of all concerned. And
Amen.
Sharon Mitchell, Reverend Sharon, wrote in the chat, inspiration, wisdom of children. Friend's 5-year-old daughter said to her younger sister, you need to remember to be appropriate to yourself. The world isn't just about being kind to everyone else. You need to be kind to yourself. That's where I find hope. That's beautiful, Sharon. I
I
mean,
love it.
that's what we need to teach our children. That's what we need to tell our children over and over. I wrote a children's book that is about being unique and special, and hoping to get it published. So got to send it off to Devores. I'm going to send something to them and see if we can get them interested. But the interesting thing is that it has to begin it has to begin at the beginning, and then we have to do what we can with the mess we've already created. And that's about meeting the needs of the people that have been impacted by the genocide that we perpetrated.
Yeah, absolutely. It's putting the human back into humanity. That's what I call it, right? Because we've really stripped that. And yeah, it's about taking care of each other, and when we do that, we are taking care of ourselves. When we talk about the law of abundance, I think people often think about financial gain, but it's not just about financial gain. It's in all areas of our lives, right? We may one day need a roof over our head. We may not have the money to do that, but somebody may give us the opportunity to live in a place rent free, right?
Yeah,
Or something like that, right? It's not just about dollars and cents. I think the more we talk about that as well, that's a very important piece for people to recognize.
exactly. Welcome, Raul. Oh, here from Mexico. Wow, we're reaching around the world here. I love
Awesome.
this. It's interesting. When I moved to Toronto, I moved here in 2000 to start the Center for Spiritual Living. And when I moved here, I had two $20 bills in my pocket, two suitcases of summer clothing, a one-way ticket to Hamilton, and one friend who lived in Oakville. So my friend picked me up at the airport. I spent the night at her house and she drove me to Toronto the next day. Slept on somebody's couch for a couple of weeks. And then my friend who I came here with, the two of us started it together, Reverend Connie Phelps. So she rented a little house and it had a little basement apartment. So I rented that from her for the first few weeks. And then the realtor who found her that place found me a place. And the place that I found, I was late on my rent every month for the first, I don't know, 2 years that I was there. I was starting this new center, right? And the landlord was remarkable. He came down one day. I had phoned him and said, "Oh, I've got your rent now." It was about 4 or 5 days late. And he comes downstairs to my apartment and we're chatting. He goes, "Oh, I just got to check something in the kitchen." And he opens up my fridge and he comes back in and he handed me back the money and he said, "Pay me after you eat." He didn't know me before I moved in. And when I moved out, I was there for 3 years. When I moved out, he said, "Best tenant everywhere." I went, "Brian, I was always late on my rent." But he said one time, he said, "When I came here, someone was here to give me that leg up." And he said, "I know you're going to do great things in the world. I'm going to be part of that." So, and he gave me away at my wedding when I married Pierre 20
Oh
years
my
ago.
goodness. That's awesome. Like that's a wonderful example of
Mhm.
what we're talking about.
That's
Right?
prosperity. That's
Yeah.
prosperity. I started volunteering with one of the city council representatives who was running for office. And I went out with her 2 nights and she hired me to work at City Hall.
Mhm.
So while I was starting the center, I was working at City Hall. It's like, things happen in the moment that as we give, we're not giving into a vacuum. We're giving into life and life responds in kind, which is so, so beautiful. And
Mhm.
so, everything we're looking at, the changes that need to be made, the systemic changes that need to be made are vast. And, I wish we could solve them all in this hour, but I don't think that's going to happen. And
I think by talking about it and um, for me, when I talk and have a conversation like this, and I read the comments and I hear comments, it helps me shift maybe some of my thoughts. It helps me move them forward. I might change my mind. I might be firmer in something I believe, and that's okay. But what it does is it helps us expand our consciousness.
exactly.
And when we do that, just like the reading I had this morning, it's if we have peaceful minds, we will create peace on the outside, right? And so the more that we can spread the conversation and spread these discussions into our societies.
Share, share, share.
Yeah, exactly.
Subscribe.
Well, it is, right? And it's not about sharing a religion. It's not about sharing. It's about sharing life. It's about sharing experience. It's about sharing thoughts and ideas. And not only that, putting them into practice to show that they work.
That's the other thing. And I think as parents, I have 4 children, 2 grandchildren, one great grandchild. And I think as parents, the most important thing we can do is model a behavior that we would like to see in the world. And it's not always easy to do because being a parent is, sometimes a very challenging task. But I think modeling that behavior and getting them ready for life is so, so important. And I had an experience with my youngest daughter. I don't know, must have been right before COVID, actually, because I don't think we were masked. But we were going into a drugstore, and there was a gentleman outside who was, asking for food, and so he's asking for money, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've only got plastic," and he goes, "Oh, I'm just so hungry." I said, "Well, I'll buy you some food," and he went, "Really?" And so we went in and we bought, some healthy choices and a big bottle of water and stuff, and we brought that back out. When we brought it out, he was so emotional. He grabbed me, gave me a big hug. He goes, I can't believe you did this. And I'm so grateful. I mean, it cost me $10 or $12. I mean, we're
Mhm.
not talking, breaking the bank here.
Mhm.
And then he looked at Genevieve, who at the time I think was about 14, and he was sort of debating whether or not it would be okay to hug her. And then he grabbed her and said, "Come here, you little shit." And he gave her a big hug. And when we got in the car, like she was like, best moment ever. She,
Mhm.
that was so great. And
Mhm.
that is going to, be part of her humanity going forward, that being there for other people, being generous with our time, our talent, and our treasure. I think it goes beyond, it's a nice thing to do. I think it's essential to healing our
Yeah.
world, and
Yeah.
bringing it to a place of full honor and respect and compassion,
Yeah.
and making it so it does work for the highest and best good for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. C says, good people with open hearts make such a difference. So happy to hear your story.
Thanks, C. Yeah, and all of us have the ability to do this,
Hmm.
but fear comes in, right? Like fear comes in. Oh, I can't hug that homeless man on the street because that's a man
Hmm.
and I'm a woman. And what's he going to think? And where's it going to, right? Like we've got this stuff that, and I taught my daughter, I wish I'd known this with all of my children, but the youngest, you get it when you get it. But I taught her not to be afraid of strangers. I taught her to listen to the intuition within her, which would let her always know what was safe and what wasn't.
I love that. My goodness. My goodness. More parents need to hear that.
It's so, stranger danger, stranger danger. No, sometimes you need a stranger because something happens. My eldest son, when I was probably about 12 years old, we'd moved into a new neighborhood and he got confused on the buses coming home and got lost.
Hmm.
And so he went into a woman's house and she had a sign in the window. There used to be signs in the window that children would recognize that this is a safe place. And he went in and he said, "I don't know how to get home. We just
Hmm.
moved and lost." So she phoned me and said, "Your son is," I was panicking. This is the day before cell phones or anything, right? And I'm panicked. And and she phones me up. I drive over and I pick him up and I bring him home and I sent her flowers the next day just to
Hmm.
say thank you for creating a safe space for
Hmm.
my child. And you know, the journey that we're on is as we begin to just be with other people, to respect where they are, we can create great harmony, great healing, great
Hmm.
possibility. We have it within us. And the simplest act can
Yeah.
actually be the most transformative.
Yeah.
Um, a gentleman that I know, a friend of mine, moved here from the Bahamas and at one point in time didn't have a place to live. And we're talking February. And
Cold.
he's in the Bahamas.
Freezing.
Yeah. So I get a phone call 11:30 at night, and he goes, the person I was staying with left me in front of this building, this office building,
Hmm.
and I have nowhere to go. And it's February 14th
Hmm.
at 11:30 at night. And I said, "I'll call you right back." I hung up. I said, "Pierre, you need to go pick him up."
Hmm.
And he lived with us for 9 months. And he
Wow.
has expressed and shared gratitude every day since then. It's been,
Hmm.
it's really been a rich blessing having him in my life, and I'm so grateful to know him.
Hmm.
And it's not about, oh, I did this great thing. No, this is just human nature. You do what you can do. And I didn't really. We live in a small house. I didn't really have room. I said, you're going to be in my basement. Kind of in the family room area, sleeping on a futon. It's indoors, it's warm, there's food, and the family love you. So he was like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." You'd think he was put up at the castle of the queen, the way
Yeah.
he responded. But the thing is, as human beings, we have an opportunity to just love, to remove our fear enough, our doubt, and our worries so that we can trust the intuition that comes so that we know when we're safe and when we're not.
Yeah. Absolutely. And to me, that's exemplifying love, which is what it's all about, love and compassion, right? And the world needs more of that. I just want to acknowledge ME's comment about the Vatican could do the right thing and stop the sexual abuse and ongoing grooming of pedophiles. And yeah, you know, when you listen to the history, how priests are basically just moved around instead of being taken accountable and responsible. But it reminded me as well when you were talking about with Genevieve saying, you know, teaching her intuition and teaching her to be able to feel what's right or wrong, and also so going beyond that, to be able to say no and to be able to, you know, to tell someone and or run away or whatever it is, right? Like to talk about these things with our kids so that it's not a hidden secret, it's not a hidden thing, and not to make them fearful, but to empower them, so that they don't have fear and that they know that they have the power to say no and to go and tell somebody, and things like that.
Very subtle way of teaching them that. One of the things I said to Pierre when Genevieve was born, I said, when she says no or stop, doesn't matter what's going on, we stop.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And what that has taught her is her no has power. She's 17. Her no has power.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll tell me no when I really am not willing to accept that no, because, you know, it's something that I want her to do that, you know, will, you know, clean the house or do whatever. But she has a sense of her own power
And
I
worth.
think, and her own worth and value.
Yeah.
That say no, it means no, end of story. And I think it's a really subtle thing that, you know, you're tickling a little baby and they're like, stop, stop. You stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple. You just stop, you listen to them and respond. And if we do that from our babies right on up, what happens is they develop an understanding that they can say no. And the other thing is we don't keep secrets. Because that's why the Vatican, that's why the priesthood is getting away with all of this. I remember watching a document, or I don't know if it was a documentary or a movie, based on what was happening in Boston, where they thought it was one priest who was a pedophile, and it turned out there was, I don't know, like almost every church, and all they do is move them around. Oh, you got caught abusing children here, let me put you in another city.
So you can abuse children there.
Yeah, so you can keep it going. But I think it comes back to taking our human nature and restricting it. Instead of been told you cannot be sexual beings, and we are sexual beings.
Yeah.
And so it's like when we decide that a part of our human nature is bad and wrong and can't be celebrated, I think that's when aberration happens. And I think, yeah. So that could create a whole other show. We could
Absolutely.
We could talk about Catholic Church.
Make a note. Before we go, I just want to encourage you, Rev B. I think you should do a parenting class.
Yes, I haven't done one for a while, but yeah. I also wrote a program for the school, and Pierre and I taught it to grade 4, 5, and 6 at Genevieve School, about how whatever we put out on the internet or wherever, whatever we put out is there forever. We cannot take it back. And
you've got to be doing more of that.
Yeah, I do need to do more of that. So, this has been fun. I can't believe we're at the end already. Oh my God.
I know. And oh my gosh, I'm thinking about how many topics we actually touched on, you know, but we can go for hours, you and I.
And next week we have Rev Elzia, and we're going to be talking about Black lives and Black situations and all of that as well. And we're going to be just going deeper. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, my beloved sister. I'm so glad to do
you. Thanks, everyone.
This is Spirit Cafe, and you can send us your ideas, thoughts, questions, comments, conundrums, concerns to spiritcafe2@gmail.com. Bye for now. See you next week.
Bye.